Welcome to this edition of American Purpose. My name is Jack Moline, and I am president of Interfaith Alliance. 60 years ago, Henry Luce, publisher of Life magazine, invited 10 prominent men, each to compose an essay on the national purpose. Then as now, there was a sense that we stood at the beginning of a time of cultural and political change. Our project expands on this work as each episode explores one perspective on where our nation was, where it is, and where it should be heading, with a contemporary thought leader. My guests are from the worlds of faith, government, politics, and culture, and they have generously agreed to share their time with us. You can find out more about Interfaith Alliance and our mission to protect your faith and freedom at interfaithalliance.org, and by listening to our radio program and podcast, State of Belief, at stateofbelief.com. But right now, let's find out more about the American purpose with my guest, country music artist Chely Wright, who is also renowned as a social activist. Welcome, Chely.
Hi, Jack. I'm so glad to be here with you. What a thrill.
We had a conversation about this about 5 years ago, just about 5 years ago. And these past 5 years have been anything but what we expected in that conversation. So I'm just going to sort of dive right into it because I'll tell you, I've been looking forward to this conversation more than most because though I've had people who make their way through politics and through academia, it is really country music which tells the story of America. And so a country artist is really going to have her finger on the pulse of what we were, what we are, and what we will be. So let me start by asking you, in your opinion, what was the original national purpose of the United States?
That's you're full of great questions, as always, Jack. As I'm an avid reader of American history and some global history, but I love American history. I grew up with parents and grandparents who this was important to them, and they passed down sort of their take and their kind of top line ideology of what is America and what is good about America, what is broken about America. We have a fascinating story to tell, and we're still telling it. But as I understand America, especially, I live here in New York City, and I'm part of this is a moving target, New York City. It's a work in progress, and I became a little more fascinated with New York because I watched a Rick Burns documentary. Ken Burns' brother made a beautiful documentary called New York. And it was then that I understood that New York didn't just happen, which summarily led me to the conclusion that America didn't just happen. America was a vision quest for people who got on boats and trains and headed, any way they could get here. They got here, they packed a bag, and they left everything behind. Some were leaving not much, and some were leaving everything. But they came here to be a part of an opportunity to grow something meaningful, rooted in purpose, but rooted in hard work and perseverance and togetherness. So the purpose of America, I think, is, if you've ever been a part of a sports team and you get that high when you win together, even when you lose together sometimes, as my Kansas City Chiefs recently did in the Super Bowl, even when you lose together, it's powerful. It's a powerful bonding experience. And I think that America's purpose has been to lock arms and move the needle, wherever way we're going. Sometimes we go in bad directions. Sometimes we collectively make bad decisions. But the American purpose is locking arms and moving.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And that's been, in your opinion, our purpose from the get-go. Is that the same purpose that we have now going forward?
Probably not. It should be. I grew up on a farm in Kansas. I grew up in a small farming community with about 1,000 people in it, about an hour outside of Kansas City. And, as people often say, I didn't really know we were poor until I was much older in life. It's true. Everyone struggled. There wasn't much disposable income. The notion of going to college for most was that will never happen. My parents didn't go. I'm not going to find a way to go. But, in the 70s and 80s, when I was a kid, it seemed to be a bit more attainable. And, as I began touring around the country, making records and singing and entertaining, I was able to really unpack kind of what America looked like, the haves and the have-nots. And, being in entertainment, I've always been exposed to the haves. I have had money in my life. I have been poor in my lifetime. And I can tell you, money and resources and opportunity and networking solves a lot of problems for a lot of people. It doesn't solve everything. But I can also tell you the inverse of that is when you don't have resources, you don't have opportunity, nothing is more devastating and impactful on a person's life than that. So, I think that as the chasm between the haves and have-nots has grown, I think that the mission, the purpose of these kind of sectors of America have changed. Sometimes a purpose of a family now is simply keeping a roof over their child's head. Right now, we've got kids at home that don't have a laptop. They don't have a way to be online for their studies. Again, that chasm gets bigger. So, the purpose, I think we don't have a shared purpose anymore. And, I know that's you're talking to a country songwriter who always has a long answer, but I don't think we have a shared purpose onto which we can all kind of grab and sink our teeth into. I think that's what's missing. And the absence of that is probably going to be our Achilles heel until we figure out what it is.
So if America came to you and said, Chely, what ought that purpose to be? Is there an answer that you could come up with?
Education. That ought to be our purpose. Education, whether it be, and it doesn't have to be college for everyone, but the access to training and, maybe a vocational advancement of study. But yeah, we obviously the lack of education and the lack of information has blown up into an entire ideology. It used to be important that a politician said something that was untrue. Do you remember that time, Jack? Do you remember?
About 5 years ago when we had that conversation.
Right. So when a politician kind of, I don't want to say got caught saying something that wasn't true, remember that politician would walk to a podium and suggest that he or she might need to take some time to spend with their family to refocus and prioritize. Now they go to the podium and they double down on it. And I don't know where I don't know where we go from there. But to answer your question, I think that our shared purpose should be access to education for everyone and kind of a mandate. You have to have this.
We have lots of values that have been foundational to our society. Some of them are admirable and some of them are not so admirable. Are there a couple of values that you recognize in American society that are worth doubling down on? I mean, you've mentioned education. Are there others? Yeah,
truth. That one again. That's a biggie. When I grew up, again, as I told you, in the Midwest, and my dad had an 8th grade education, and he was a construction worker, really brilliant mathematician, great engineer. Just, his father died when he was young. His home life got kind of rocky. He went into the military and when he was 17, lied and snuck his way into the Navy. So really blue collar. My mom is from kind of the same set of circumstances. Her dad was in the Army, and they grew up in Kansas City. He was a union worker. He worked for Chevrolet for 40 years. But one of the things the key tenets of my childhood was the truth will always come out. So I wasn't a good liar. My sister was good at, she was good at playing her cards well and holding back certain information. She's a very honest and truthful person, but she understood how to navigate, the childhood. I was so terrified of being caught in a lie, and a lot of it is because I was closeted. So I wanted to never make a misstep. I wanted to be a perfect child because I knew at some point my parents would figure out that I was gay, and that would be a referendum on me, and I wanted what would balance all that out to be. But she's never lied to it, So my relationship with the truth was, I was dedicated to it, and part of that was because my parents said, you can lie to us, but I'm telling you what, the truth will come out every time. And I've actually learned that that's kind of true. That does you'll pay the piper at some point. So I think one of the values that we need to make a premium is truth. But Jack, for the life of me, I have no idea how we get there. I don't know. Do you?
Well, I don't know. Maybe we'll explore that in a minute, but I want to ask you the opposite of that question first, which is, are there values in our society that hold us back from necessary progress that we ought to be reconsidering?
Are there values that hold us back from necessary progress that we should be considering? Well, I think religion is a problem. Wrong room?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm a person of faith, as you and I have discussed over the years, and I've made very publicly known. I also happen to be a gay woman, and I was told from a very young age that these two things are incompatible. And when I came out of the closet, I can't tell you how many letters from churches and a couple of official documents that scared me, where churches implored me to stop saying that I could be both, because I am not both and it's not possible. That's pretty upsetting and pretty dangerous, I think. So I think that religion, as it's been weaponized to scare people and control people, especially like me, I think that's problematic. And there seems to be a conversation among, the far right evangelical movement that we can't be both, that we can't be many things. And that's a problem. In the conversation, we just had a big election, as you know, and I can't tell you how discouraging it is every single time to see a Republican leader pandering to I know they don't believe it. I know they don't think this about me because they know better. They're smarter, they're educated, they've been around the world. They don't believe that God doesn't matter to me, but they know a certain portion of their base can be easily manipulated if they're told that. So that's worse, Jack. That's worse. When a leader Mike Huckabee knows that there are gay people of faith. Mike Huckabee knows that, he knows enough to know better that he propagates this kind of trash is a problem. So I feel my heart rate going up now. Fires me up, Jack.
So I'm glad that you raised the question of religion, because the work of Interfaith Alliance, and that we're very much focused on the first rights in the First Amendment. Most of our constitutional guarantees emphasize our commonality. But the very first freedom in the Bill of Rights is very personal. It is religion. It is freedom of conscience. So are there values that are rooted in your personal belief system that you commend to people who might not share your beliefs? What are the things that you feel have lifted you as a Christian that you might commend to people who are not?
It's a really great question. I think a lot about my fellow Americans who don't have a faith practice. My wife and I were talking about this just 2 nights ago, about how left out they must feel. I even, I love America and I love my faith, but I even feel I get a little pang in my stomach when our president, whether it be a Republican or a Democrat, at the end of declarative speech about, important matters of the day. It even bugs me when they say, God bless America, because I think of my friend Eric, who is agnostic. I think of my friend Brad, who is atheist. I think it hits me that, does that make them feel left out? And I've talked to them about that, and it does. It makes them, it's like the end of a really good date, and then somebody does something super offensive. I think I may be more offended than they are about it, but yeah, I have so much in common with my friends who don't have a faith practice. It's more so than other people. It's, integrity, work ethic, family, community, neighborhood. I mentioned my friend Eric. He's one of my favorite. He's just one of the most decent people I know in the world. He does not have a faith practice, and I have more in common with him than most of my fellow Americans with a faith practice.
Then what is then the function of your specific commitments in your life if you find such commonality with people who don't necessarily share your background?
What is the help me again with the question?
Sure. If what you've identified as being worth lifting up are the values that we all share, regardless of what faith we practice or do not practice, what is the value in your personal life of those specific faith commitments that you do hold?
I'm a work in progress, Jack.
Aren't we all?
Something a value that I am continually trying to feed and water in myself is I'm naturally empathetic. I don't have, I really feel and try to feel what other people are feeling. I think that's part of why I'm a songwriter. But forgiveness and allowing people to forgive me. I was asked a question by a mutual artist friend the other day. I participated in her online blog about it. And her question was, do you think that the forgiver or the forgiven gets the most benefit? And my answer was that being on either end of that transaction is the most powerful thing in the world. And I really believe that if you were to cut me open, you would find evidence of both in my bones, because I can't imagine what else is holding me up. That's what I'm made of, are those moments of when I'm sorry, I'll say it. And that's hard to do. It's really hard to do. It's hard to get to the point where you really understand I wronged that person or I slighted that person. But when you can get from A to Z quicker, I'm 50 years old now, so I get there a little quicker, it's healing, it's cathartic, it's like a baptism in and of itself. And to have someone receive that from me and to get to kind of wipe the slate clean, and in fact, not just wipe a slate clean, it's a building block upon which that relationship gets to keep going. So the clean slate, forget that. I get to grow and erect a monument of forgiveness and forgiving with every person in my life, whether it be business related, friendship, family, neighbor. It's an opportunity to, erect something beautiful from that. So that, for me, that's kind of the meat and potatoes of who I am now and who I want to be.
So forgiveness is certainly a part of every faith tradition, but it is definitely central to Christianity in all of its iterations, except maybe Westboro Baptist Church, but that's a different story altogether.
They ticketed me a couple of times. I really felt like I'd made it, Jack.
Yeah, well, listen, it's a badge of honor in this society.
It is.
Tell me, Chely, how do you think our society should be pursuing our national purpose at this point?
Leadership in, whether it be on a farm, on a basketball team, on a football team, in a state legislature, or the White House. Leadership is everything. Again, back to what my parents taught me when I was a kid, be careful who you follow. You are known by the company you keep. And, our country has, and our world, frankly, historically, has gone into some dark holes following the wrong ideology, following the wrong person. So I think leadership has to be reset and recommitted to truth and example. And, we need leaders in positions of power who are able to self-identify as a person who makes mistakes. I can't even tell you how mind-boggling it has been for the past 4 years to watch a leader who has never acknowledged having made a mistake in his life. I can't even understand that. In any leadership position I've ever held in my life, I've noticed I'm more effective when I can say, that was my bad. I messed that up. I led a band and crew for years on tour. There's something really powerful about my saying, I forgot the words of that song. That was my fault. I messed you guys up. That's an exercise in trust. And so leadership has to be reset, and we need leaders who can, take accountability for triumph and failure. I don't know. Jack, I don't know how we go forward unless or until we have that.
And my experience is that if you don't make a mistake, you never learn anything. And if you never learn anything, you never get any farther than you are right now. So,
can I bumper sticker that?
Sure, you can have that.
This would not be the first thing I've bumper stickered of Jack's.
So, what role does the individual play in moving our national purpose forward? If as society we have to focus on truth, on honesty, on forgiveness, what role does the individual play in all of that?
Yeah, my first answer, it comes to me via one of my sons who said, Mama, you have 2 ears to listen and 1 mouth to speak. And so apparently
that's pretty good.
Pretty good, isn't it? I think
there's a bumper sticker.
That's a good one. I think one of his teachers told him that, and obviously we need to recommit ourselves as a nation to hear one another. That was my initial response. But then that has been weaponized to news outlets and everyone saying, no, we have to listen to the other side. We have to understand QAnon, and we have to at some point you have to listen, and then you have to draw a line of what you care about and what you don't care about and where you stand. And so I think that's my answer. My answer is, especially in the world of advocacy that I'm lucky to get to run around in, people ask me a lot, well, what can I do? What can I do to support the LGBTQ community? I tell them that it's not just hitting a like on social media. At some point, you have to have your own mission statement made clear to your colleagues, your neighbors, your family members. And sometimes it's a really bold act for people to state, this is what I believe in, this is what I care about. As a byproduct of a conversation, just saying, oh yeah, I have a gay nephew, at some point that's not enough. In country music, it's no longer enough to say, well, I love all my fans, I don't judge. You got to say it. You got to say what you mean, and you have to have, companies and businesses on their their main page of their websites. They all have a mission statement: who we are, what we care about. I think it's incumbent upon every person in America, and perhaps around the globe, but every person in America, they have to have their mission statement too. It's time. It's overdue. We don't have time to be coy and sly and kind of slide in here and fit in here. We have to say it. Everybody has to declare who they are, what matters to them, who they love. But yeah, Everett's declaration that he has 2 ears and a mouth, 2 ears to listen and 1 mouth to speak, that is pretty good, isn't it?
It is excellent. Excellent. So we've talked a lot about what America has been and what America could be, and there's no doubt that there's a lot of problems connected with it. Are you optimistic about America's future?
I am. I am. And one of the reasons I am optimistic about our future is, Joe Biden wasn't my first choice. I wanted Kamala Harris, and then when she was out, I wanted Elizabeth Warren, and frankly, I wanted Hillary Clinton. And Joe Biden is a really decent, honest person whom I believe cares about the future of this country. So I feel optimism at that our last president is no longer a president. I feel optimistic that science will have saved us from ourselves. I'm optimistic on a personal level about my family and the clarification that has happened among my family. The pandemic, devastating as it is, has been really clarifying. I'm doubling down on things I care about, which is advocacy and lifting others up in my direct community and my community at large. But I think, every population has peaks and valleys. We have been, sorry, ambulance outside. I don't know if you can hear.
It's New York.
It's New York. I live right by a hospital. We've been in a valley, and we've got quite a hill to climb, but it feels good to take those first couple of steps. And that it's kind of self-fulfilling. Where our legs are burning because we've got some steep steps to take and we can feel it, but it sure feels good to be going in the right direction again. And I think there is a way, I don't know what it is. Smarter people than I will probably figure it out, and you're part of that brain trust, Jack, but there is a way to reunite America. I hope it doesn't come in the shape of our having an obvious domestic foreign attack on us. That seems to be one of the ways that coalesces America around our American purpose. I hope it's not that. It'll be really sad if it's that. But I'm optimistic. I just feel like we've got a tailwind. I feel like people are so tired of being against something. I think when we all feel that burn in our legs, how good that feels to take these steps together, that could be it. We could all just kind of relax our shoulders, lock arms, and say, can we do this together? Because we're going nowhere unless we do this together.
That's great. So I've got you captive here for a minute, and I know that an artist never stops creating. Let me ask you what you're working on right now.
So I am working on a book that's coming out on Simon & Schuster in October. It's called My Moment, and it really came from a really honest place a couple of years ago when the Brett Kavanaugh hearings were happening, and Harvey Weinstein was in the news, and Bill Cosby, and I began to understand and see that the women with whom I was staying connected. I have, a dozen different text threads that are years long on my phone, as do most people. But my women texts they became pithier, more intense. And I share a lot with my friends, but we began sharing things that we hadn't shared in our 30-year relationship, 10-year relationship. I began to see that was the lifeline for women. So I got together with a couple of my pals, Kristen Chenoweth, Kathy Najimy, Linda Perry, my wife, and we put together a project in which we ask women around the globe the exact same question. And I can't divulge to you what the question is right now, but we, from a college student in Uganda to an Oscar winner in the United States to the Tracy Edwards, the first woman to captain pilot a boat around the world with an all-female crew, they all answer the same question, and the answers are awe-inspiring. So I'm working on that and some other stuff.
So it's a great metaphor for what I'm doing here, since I can appropriate whatever is put in front of me. There's a variety of people being asked essentially the same questions about the American purpose, including what can we do individually and how do we do this together. And I'm glad to hear that there's an example of that that's going to be in our hands come October. I can't wait to see it.
Thanks, Jack. I'll send you a copy.
Real good. Listen, Chely, thank you so much for having this conversation with me, and thanks to our listeners for engaging with us and exploring the American purpose. It's been an honor and a pleasure to spend this time with Chely Wright, who has shared her perspective so generously. You can listen to this and other episodes at americanpurpose.org and learn more about our work at stateofbelief.com and interfaithalliance.org. Interfaith Alliance has produced this program under the guidance of Ray Kirstein. I am Jack Moline, encouraging you to live with purpose.